Welcome, everybody, to a new edition of UFO Man Live. My name is Tim, or UFO Man, and my permanent co-host is Tom Reed, the legend, the myth.
Permanent host. It's okay. That's great because last week it was like temporary or fill-in host. So
No, the week before that, but I made it permanent.
stand corrected.
Anyways, we have a very special guest tonight. Her name is Melissa Tittl. She is a producer and a writer, an investigative journalist, the former head of content Gaia, the CEO of Hathor Studios, and co-host on UFO Witness with Ben Hansen. She's also working on several other projects, almost too numerous to name. I've got them up. I've got them uploaded so that we can show you some of them later. But welcome, Melissa, to the panel.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Good to see you again. So I'm glad you introduced her because I would have been like, and it's like this whole, list, right? So, and you got more stuff going on, right? You got the film you just shot, and you got an award, and yeah, you've just been all over the place. I mean, what would you like to start with? I mean, you've got so many things going on right now.
Well, I know that we're premiering this new film, Code 12, you just saw there in the corner. And we are premiering this at the Roswell, the UFOXPO. It's happening in Roswell, which is super exciting. It's not necessarily about aliens, but it is possibly the reason why they could be here. And that is more evidence, and especially not only evidence, but the idea that we live in a simulated universe. And if we do, who created it? And this is a research that I've been doing for the last 10 years. What's really cool about this is that, well, there's just so much. I couldn't even fit it in this film. So I was trying to do it in a way that would make sense, right? Because what happens when you start looking down this rabbit hole is that everything just starts coming into focus, and you're like, this is so crazy. How am I going to make this into a film? So the conversation of, do we live in a simulated universe, or the idea of the Matrix, seems to be sort of separate from aliens, except that there could be some kind of AI presence. However, if there is such a thing, who created it? And that gets us into the alien conversation. And that actually gets us into understanding how the universe works. And are they in control of it, or are they part of the propagation of space and the simulation itself? And then how does that work? So we don't necessarily try to define what's happening on this planet, an alien presence, but we do define what could be happening on this planet, and that aliens are part of it. And I think that's actually a really interesting conversation to have.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm just a co-host.
I was just going to add, one of the things that is interesting in regards to what you just said is, because of the light spectrum that we see in, we don't see everything that's going on around us.
No.
So there could be so much going on around us right now that we can't see, that is dictating our existence.
Right. And in a negative, positive way, controlling us because we can't see.
Tom?
Co-host Tom.
All right. So is it safe to say then, in the film you shot, Code 12, right? We can announce it. Did you go into it with an idea, or did you go into it and then everything kind of starts to make sense a little bit and you take it from there? And my second question is, with respect to extraterrestrial life, or however we want to word this, that those messages were already in the pyramids. So it was simply a matter of extracting that and then realizing that we weren't here first, right? Or that there was a presence back when or before the pyramids were built. So how do you connect the code, if you will, with respect to another intelligent life form?
Right.
All right, I'll start with the first question. So ever since I was, I don't know, a little girl, I would have all of these weird, everything I was in numbers, like the amount of stairs that I would count. This is gonna sound like I was a little nuts, but But I wanted to figure out why I was always thinking about this without having any perspective, with no Google, without being in the field that I am, right? It was that I was always calculating things in threes, and I would look at things and I would decipher them in certain ways, and I would decide in my head, having done documentaries on, how people process things. Now I know. I would decide in my head like what was safe based on the propagation of the number system, which is a little crazy. So as I got older and into the field that I'm in, I always was wondering why I was thinking these things. And when I opened up that can of worms, I just, especially with all the research I do and the people I talk to, it just started to kind of align itself to this massive system. And the thing of the fact that we live in a simulated universe and a matrix, this isn't a new conversation. But what I present in this film is the actual code of the way out of the matrix. So there's a lot of evidence, and I've written a lot of these shows, and I've talked to a lot of these people that have something, like the Da Vinci Code or any of that kind of stuff. And that's all part of the code, but that is defining the matrix and the simulation we live in. But there is a code to the way out of it. And that, going to your second question, is what the ancient Egyptians and a lot of these ancient cultures have left behind, is the code out of the system. And they wanted to carve it in stone, and they wanted to create it into something that would not destruct, so that at some point when we look at those walls and we stare at them and we're like, what are they trying to tell us? And everyone has a different view of it. That what they're trying to tell us on those walls and all those temples and even the Great Pyramid is the way out of the matrix. And that is what I discuss in this film.
Okay, so the way out, do you mean like to like an alternative reality?
Right. So existing beyond the current existing reality that you are experiencing right now. And that
we live in
includes aliens, and includes that because they're intersecting with this reality. And I think it's because they understand the code of this reality, and they can interfere, and they can come in and they can go out of it. That's something that I don't necessarily try to solve in this film, but I definitely address that is part of their understanding of how the universe works.
So the 12, the number 12, what is that relevance, if you don't mind? My birthday's a 12.
Too complicated to explain, but it's the way that so if you're coding a system, right? So most of if the audience is into like ancient aliens or ancient civilizations or any of that kind of stuff, we live in a base 10 system, right? This is mostly based on a financial system that was created back in ancient Sumeria, so 6,000 years ago, properly. We live in some kind of base 10 world. Everything's calculated on that. Even most of our systems are calculated in that. Even most
like binary.
East binary, but even most of our computer systems are that way. However, if you were to create a system on base 12, which some ancient cultures had done way before ancient Sumeria, they had created a base 12 system, you would be able to create more space and propagate that space in base 12 than you would base 10. Base 10 is a finite system, so it comes in a loop and it comes back on itself and it dies, right? Everything on this planet dies within that base 10 system. On a base 12 system, you're propagating yourself out into space. So you're constantly creating and expanding within that system. You're eternal, not finite, which is everything that's in the system right now. So if I was an extraterrestrial or an alien race,
maybe
and I knew that, I would be able to pop into a finite system to get what I needed out of it, whether it was education or enlightenment or resources or any of that, dark and light, and be able to pop out of it because I knew how the universe worked. I could pop in and out of systems very easily, just how we can look at a two-dimensional reality and be like, okay, we can totally control that because we're three-dimensional. And then understanding that from 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it's just nothing. You can just be like, I'm just going to pop into that reality.
But wasn't the base 10 reality created by mankind, whereas the base 12 is actually what we really are?
Exactly. So that is definitely something. I talked to a geneticist from Stanford about this, that we actually have the capability to be all of that. It's not that we aren't, we just can't access it because there's all sorts of theories, right? So
Right.
because somebody cut us off, because it's the Anunnaki, because of societal reasons, whatever it is, but we have access to that. We exist in that at all times. We just don't access it. We don't use the brain space. We don't actually
Right.
have enough of that genetic material that we're accessing unless we can access it. So we have access to it. So I think a lot of times, sometimes the alien conversation where we mostly feel like victims, and it's only because we either are not taught or we don't believe in how the universe can work and how we can be in control of that just as much as anything else.
Yeah, we're part of a bigger picture.
Right. Exactly.
Don't you believe that there are actually some people that are aware of the base 12 system and are able to manipulate it,
100%.
whereas others are not?
100%. I mean, just look at it like I always look at it like from a video game standpoint. If you're able to go above the video game and move some dots around and then come back into the video game, I mean, there's always people that have been able to do that, you know, and
Right.
some of them are for enlightenment for mankind, and some of them are just controlling the populations of people because most people are run on fear, right? So you have those avatars out there like, you know, Buddha and Jesus and Krishna, you know, all these kinds of beings that have created a religion around that people were able to pop out of this and control this reality. But then there's definitely a lot of people doing that for selfish reasons. And that is true.
I guess I have a question in regards to the reality being part of the matrix. If that is the case, then perhaps glitches actually exist.
Deja vu.
Yeah, well, I mean actual visual glitches. My brother actually saw a man get onto an elevator, and then 5 seconds later, the same man got back onto the elevator. So how could that happen? See what I'm saying? And I've
Well,
heard
that
other
gets
people
into
that.
that gets into one of my favorite conversations, which is the idea of NPCs, right? Non-play characters. So if I was to build a reality, and let's say 40% of it is actual souls trapped in bodies in this system,
Right.
I would have to create a system that was still running to create the chaos and the emotional attachment to the system. Not everybody can fill that with souls, right? So there has to be some. It's a. I remember I proposed this at a dinner party once, and not all the people were in this space. And it became, over the more drinks that happened at the dinner party, everybody started talking about situations where they were like, I think that person was an NPC, right? Because we all have situations where, like, not just your brother with the elevator with this guy who just kept, you're like, wait, I just saw that guy. It just, people are like, wait, there's something off about that person. They're like, they either have come into my life to completely trigger something internally, or it's just something off, right?
Right.
And everybody has these situations. So it's not just people that are questioning reality. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense, you know?
Right. And it doesn't just involve people, it involves animals, solid structures, everything.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I've seen cats that aren't there. So, or repeat their presence, you know, they're there and then they come back, you know. So I don't know. I've always cast out the idea of living in Matrix because I want to believe that my world is three-dimensional and solid. I don't want to believe that what I'm seeing and perceiving with my brain is actually what the world is and what the universe is.
Yeah, I mean, we all don't want to, because you know what this, but that's not necessarily true. It is real. It's just that there is another existence of you that could be beyond this if you wanted it.
Right.
So I think a lot of times when I talk to people about this, people are attached. I mean, like, all of my life, I have to like let go of that. It doesn't exist. You know, that, I mean, that's not I don't think anybody should believe that. I think that everything that you've done is real. It's
Right.
just that if you're actually questioning this, if you're actually thinking about what else could I be, that means there is something more for you to be, you know?
Right.
But everything you're experiencing here is real because you're feeling it. And you have to think about if I was to create a matrix or simulation and I was a soul trapped in a body, the only thing that would keep me in this existence would be the fear and the feeling and the attachment, right? So that's what a lot of spiritual texts talk about. It's not some new age crap. It's
It's
you
actual.
experience more of yourself. It's just
You have to
there is
open
this
up.
world.
You have to open up yourself. I do know that people have been trying to lure me into meditation so that I can do that.
Laura.
And I say lure because at first I wasn't really interested in it. I thought it was a waste of time, but I've done a lot of research into it, and it seems to be very legitimate. So maybe it'll help me. Who knows? But I do believe that the human population, for it to grow past its barbarity, the only way we're going to do it is through meditation and ascension to a different plane. It's not going to happen otherwise.
Right. And to get back to, the alien conversation, I mean, I've interviewed a lot of people that have had, and I'm sure you guys have talked to a lot of people on the show that have had repeat abduction experiences ever since they were kids. And some of them break that cycle based on the fact that they are able to manipulate the field by saying, no, you can't come in. I'm not allowing you. And it's not just your words. It is like a whole control of your being. And there's been, I think about 5 or 6 people that I've interviewed that have like completely stopped anything that's been happening in their life since that point. And that to me signals that there are things that do have power, more power than us to see, but that we have just as much power as they do, based on the fact that they just have more education of how the universe works. And we can do all of that.
So there's no reason to limit ourselves to being human.
Exactly. There is no separation, I think. I think that there's this idea that there's aliens and people want to put them in different categories of evil and godlike. And then we're kind of just here on Earth waiting for a sign. I don't think that at all. I think that there's, I think that we can be at that level.
Well, we have more senses too than we want to admit or want others, to validate, if you will. But so I get it. I think that, like I've said to a lot of times on the show, that Earth is our galaxy's arc. I think we were brought here from somewhere else. I think that we're all part of a bigger picture, like we said earlier, and that we are capable of doing a lot more. And to give you an example, I mentioned this once before. A friend of mine came over years ago, this like large table that they used to use in a testing center. And it was like an air hockey table. And it had a ping pong ball on it. And it had these loops and like little goalposts, like football goalposts, And they put this, this headset with these electrodes in my brain, that registered or, increased the frequency. And before you know it, I could move that ping pong ball all over the table by thought.
That's cool.
It wasn't that I was able to go like focus and like move, right? It wouldn't do it. I had to like relax, let go, and will it. And when I willed it, I could move the ping pong ball. Now it's a game that you can buy on Amazon called The Force by Hasbro. So it's kind of like when you can move a limb by thought, you have an artificial limb or something.
Right.
But the interesting thing is that it's simply a matter of getting in touch with yourself, I think, and being able to focus enough energy and I guess that's really the word for it, is just to, kind of like a funnel and to these thoughts. And I think if you're able to do that, you can, the whole ESP thing, the moving of the artificial limbs. So there's a lot that we can do if we just know or have some direction on how to do it. And these things might have been much more prevalent in the past.
I got to add one thing to that, Tom.
News and everything, but we don't really use it anymore. So maybe at one point we had a higher IQ. We were able to see and feel and project, and we were more than just human at one point, and we still are. We just don't know it, maybe.
Yeah, I totally, 100%. I agree with you. I think, most of my my work, as an investigative journalist, covering a lot of these alien stories and paranormal and the unknown. I really think when people ask me, they're like, "Oh, is it to find the truth?" And I'm like, "Well, the truth is there's many different layers of the truth, but the one thing that's important to me is that in this conversation of the paranormal and the alien conversation is what defines humanity." And I guarantee the government is asking the same question. Because when we figure that out, when we really figure out the scope of what it means to be human, I think that we'll be able to communicate with things on a different level.
Absolutely.
Right now, we're all kind of acting like victims, and we're kind of like documenting this phenomenon happening. But what if we are part of that phenomenon? We just can't understand how the universe works, and we are literally in coherence with whatever is happening all the time, good and bad. We just can't see it. So
what if we change your comment a little bit and say, what if we are the phenomenon?
Ooh, interesting. Yeah.
And
we
are looking at us coming
right?
back. Yeah.
I mean, we are in this reality. We are the phenomenon, right? But we all play roles in the idea of what the phenomenon looks like. Whether it's gods coming to visit us. I mean, I wrote like the first 5 seasons of Ancient Aliens, right? I've talked about all that stuff. But I think why we're all interested in that and figuring out the truth is because the truth is, what does that make me on this planet? And I think that's really what the investigation is. Because if there is something else, what does that define me as human? And I know that's not as sexy as like the trajectory or aliens walking around somewhere. But the thing is, all these experiences are because we are part of something so much bigger. Mm-hmm. And we can have so much more control of that if we just understand how the universe works.
Do you believe there's a species within a species? Do you think the O-negative blood groups and that kind of thing play a part in all this?
You mean the tinkering of genetic codes and stuff like that? Meaning
well, like for instance, I'm O-negative. My body temperature runs at like 97.1. When I was a kid, if I had a 99-point temperature, I was sick. But of course, I still went to school because no, you're fine. But my point is that your blood type, or your blood grouping, if you will, or the O-negative factor, the Rh negative factor, should not alter your entire body's temperature just because you have a different type of blood.
Right.
So I've always thought, and I've tried to make sense of what happened with us in a whole bit, go back and dissect it in a whole bit, because I'm trying to scientifically make sense of it, which is almost impossible anyway. But right at the same time, I do think that maybe there is a species within a species, and maybe some of us are a little bit more intuitive. Or take yourself. There's an interest. There's a reason that you're so interested in doing this.
Yeah, the O-negative blood type conversation I think is really interesting because again, as a journalist, I try to look for patterns instead of just individual stories. But to that point, a lot of people with that blood type do experience not only if it's alien activity, but they have some kind of weird connection to whether it's paranormal events or some kind of strange intuition. That they have, like just like really strange, not just like I'm really good at predicting what's going to happen in the future, like just really, really, really strange things. And I'm hypothesizing here because I didn't do all the research for this, but in that conversation and in this bigger conversation of do we live in this idea of this reality? Could that blood type be more susceptible to the field? Does it pick up more information? And that would be a really interesting investigation to do, to ask that question. usually when I'm interviewing or researching that, it's in the alien realm of
Mhm.
like, why are these people
Right.
experiencing more of this versus other blood types? But maybe they are picking up things in the field that other people aren't. And
They're heightened.
so, you know,
They're
this brings me to a really good point. I mean, I can't explain my whole film, but it definitely breaks down this code on the way out, right? But there is another book that was written quite a long time ago called The Harmonic Conquest of Space. And in this book, they talk about that there is, you've heard this probably, anybody's listening to this has heard that there's like a grid over the planet, and there's all these vortexes and all that kind of
Right.
stuff, right?
Caroline Corey.
But in this book, this person has found a pentadodecahedron, which means that there's 12 different points in this structure. 12. We're back to 12. And in those points on Earth, that is where other universes, other dimensions of reality can collide. So what does this mean? I'm not talking about where it's Sedona and aliens show up or anything, but there are points within this structure where things can come through and interact. Now, back to your blood type point. If I had a blood type that was easily picked up in the field and I dropped in to one of those points, who would I make contact with first? Probably with someone who's more energetically connected to this field. Now, I'm hypothesizing completely, but I'm taking two different theories and I'm saying that might be a reason why a lot of these O negative blood types are experiencing.
How about this now? I got a question for you. What do you think of this? Just to get your point of view. I know Tim wants to go, but just 1 second. So, all right. So in the 60s, O negative blood groups, anyone with O negative blood was tracked by the U.S. government. Did you know that? They were universal donor. Do you think that what might have been some tampering at that point when they realized that the universal donor had some abilities and maybe the government played a part in a lot of this stuff too? Because a lot of people think that that's what happened in New England.
New England, what do you mean? What happened in New England? Like
our case and all that, and a lot of the
you're saying, okay, New England, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
in general. I mean, the government tampers with a lot of things. I mean, here's the thing: if they did research O negative blood type, and they actually took an interest in it, that means that they discovered that there's something really unique about the property. I'm working on another documentary I can't talk about, where I am dealing with a lot of different blood types, and we are discussing some really unique properties in people's plasma and everything, and it was really scientific. There's just no woo-woo at all.
Yeah,
And
well,
what I
that's
can
my
say-
land. That's my realm. Yeah.
Yeah, what I can say about that is that maybe they discovered that there is something that we don't know yet that is in that blood type that they wanted to really experiment with. But I don't think that they I don't think that they muddled with anybody's blood. I think that they might have done some research. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I know that there's been a lot of testing by the government, and there's also an interest in O negative blood, and the government took an interest in O negative blood, and we're a universal donor, but at the same time, our body temperatures run at different temperatures. We tend to be overly sensitive. Time Magazine did a special that said the only real link that they found between ESP, if you will, or cobalt ESP, was that those with O negative blood tested higher. And even my son, who's AB negative, was tested by the Knoxville Hypnosis Center, and he was found to test higher than coincidental chance. So that's how when he was a kid, he got the nickname Chance. So I think there's something to it, and if we know it and you know it and other people are surmised or at least are on that same, wagon, if you will, that the government certainly would know about it. So I was just thinking, maybe there is, and I've always felt that there are different species of the human race. Just like there's different breeds of dog, different breeds of horses. I don't think we're all the same. We're not all cut from the same mold. We're similar, but I think there's differences. And I think that those differences are significant. But we hang out or socialize with other people who, for the most part, aren't like us. So maybe we become more like them and stop trying so hard to access these points or what makes us different. Just a thought.
One thing I
mean,
was going to say.
That could be a
Sorry.
whole rabbit hole of conversation, right?
I just got to add one comment.
Oh, you're going to throw more into it right now? Seriously?
Yeah, I'm going to throw more into it. I think that people with O negative blood actually, when they access the field, are actually accessing other people who are also O negative, and those people come into their life. Because I'm O negative, Tom's O negative. We both have low blood temperatures or low temperatures. Okay, I usually run about 96.7. And we're both pale. Well, I'm red tonight, but
I tan really, really well. Okay.
Okay, all right. He tans, but I'm pale, and I've seen studies where they say that people with the Rh negative factor come from mainly the
Estonians.
the European countries like Scotland, Ireland, Belgium, Denmark, Sweden, Norway. So perhaps that's where the original quote unquote aliens that are intermingling with the Matrix actually landed and manipulated our blood.
Well, there's actually, I think it's a location in Spain where they have the most Rh negative genetic grouping. And that doesn't mean that, long time ago, ancient, I don't know how many thousands of years ago, that doesn't mean that somehow they all coagulated in one area. So that's the most concentration of Rh negative that there is on the planet. Why? Nobody knows. I think the whole idea that some kind of grouping came down and tinkered with our DNA is somehow plausible, considering where we are in humanity right now. We're already tinkering with DNA. We're already growing babies in labs and stuff like that. If that was to happen, because it's not that far off. I think that the different blood types on the planet are for survival. I think if I was to create, I'll just go back to the beginning of this conversation. If I was to create a simulation in a matrix, I would obviously want my players to survive, right? So having different blood types is a survival technique, and creating some that can communicate with the field and some that maybe have a harder time. That would make more sense, right?
Right.
That also makes things more interesting.
Right.
I'm with you there. That's kind of what I think. Just like there was this thing out there you read, those with O negative blood couldn't get COVID. Remember that?
Yeah.
I never got it.
There's lots of claims about, who.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying,
COVID and all that kind of stuff. But
okay.
I think I'm A negative. I believe I'm.
Oh, you are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Interesting. And you have an interest in the field. Have you ever seen a UFO yourself? Have you ever had an experience yourself?
I've definitely had a lot of experiences. I've never seen anything, but I have definitely been to places and I communicated with things, but I can communicate with them and I can feel them, but I can't see them. There's no craft landing in my yard or anything like that.
You're sensitive. You're very sensitive.
Yeah. There's at some point early in my career when I was in Los Angeles, I went to a meditation teacher who actually worked for the government at one point, was training people how to do the whole stare at goat stuff. And the only reason I went to him was because I interviewed him and he's like, I teach people how to get into deep places of meditation. And I'm like, whatever, you're a spook. I don't want to deal with you. But when I went to him, he one of the things that I wanted to really get a handle on was that when I would be in a meeting, I would be able to actually know what everybody was thinking and saying. And it wasn't really helping the meeting because nobody really, unless they're actually saying it, doesn't want people to know what they're saying in their head.
So you're sitting there, you're looking at people and you just kind of know who they are. You feel what,
that sounds like crazy. I guess we're talking about crazy
No,
stuff,
it's not really.
Because okay, can you teach me how to shut that off? I just want to shut it off. I just want to stop.
I wouldn't. I'd I'd be focusing on that and the speaker. I'm more interested in what he's thinking and what he's going to do when he leaves the place. But I totally get it, because I'm kind of like that too in a lot of ways. I know people who are too, just like you walk down the street, someone's behind you, right, or looking at you, or even those little tiny things. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people are just like robotic creatures, right? They just go through life, they block all these things out, and they never become the person they were supposed to be or meant to be, because they don't spend enough time looking within and becoming that person. I don't look at what happened with us as a bad thing. I said that over and over again. It was a privilege to be part of it, because it opened my eyes, and it had me and my family, look at things from a different perspective now that we wouldn't have normally.
I have a question for you, Tom. Do you think, I've heard this before. I don't have any proof of it, but I just hear it a lot when I interview people, that there's this idea that this idea of soul contracts, that some people that have abduction experiences have already agreed to do this process within this lifetime, so that they can tell people about it. Do you feel that you were in that kind of situation? I don't have any proof of that. I just interview a lot of people, and they talk about the soul contract, that they made the soul contract that in this lifetime they were going to be abducted and have this experience with aliens. Do you feel that is something that...
Okay, I can tell you this. In 1954, my mother had her first sighting. So a lot of things that happened with us as children, she kind of already had an idea of what was happening. With that, you've been to the park, you've been to the waterway there, the bridge. I actually sketched something when I was 8 or 9 years old. That area didn't look like anything I sketched. And for the longest time, I used to pick up this thing I drew, and I was like, why do I feel so, like right now, why do I get so attached to that, right? And then later on, 30 years later, that area looked like my sketch. So was that something unwillingly, or something that I wasn't able to make sense of at the time? But was there visions in my head? Yes, and I'll tell you why. My mother, after that, I'm going to say maybe a year or two after we saw, what I sketched and everything, she ended up going out and buying a willow tree and placing it near a pond, so that when I looked out my window, it used to upset me, because it was starting to look very much like what I sketched. But she never admitted seeing that in her head like I did. It's really kind of like we saw the same thing,
right?
To the extent that she went and bought a tree to plant it there, but never really shared with me why she did it. And then if you go down to the park now, you've got willow trees and stuff that were never there to begin with. And why did we have this same... It's the strangest thing. It wasn't like saying to you, like, oh, I'm going to do my office this way, or I'm going to buy this sofa.
Right.
It was so impactful that she invested money to buy a tree. Now, I don't know many people out there buy trees, but you know what I mean? It was just like, so yeah, I think that
it's almost
I don't
as
think we
if
pick up on everything like we're supposed
about
to.
this a lot on the show UFO Witness, but they didn't air all of it because they can't, right? It's a show, so it's like, they can't air all the little things. But when we were interviewing you, I thought to myself, you almost and your family are living like all these dimensional lives at once. Does that make sense? Like you drawing the boot, and I thought Epsilon, right? Like, is that they're trying to show you where it's from, like in the willow tree, like over.
You remember that? Yeah, like a sneaker.
Again. Right.
Which I don't talk about much.
Right. And and that you couldn't get these images out of your mind. It's because you're not supposed to.
Right.
Because they're supposed to mean something. And when you drew the willow tree, and we talked about the willow tree, and I thought to myself, I almost think like they're showing you something that's not a willow tree. They're showing you, they're like, okay, so here's a boot and here's a willow tree. Like, but what does a willow tree look like? It's right. All of the trunk and all, and right, and then it comes up, and then it creates this separation of all this energy.
And a willow tree is a hybrid tree. It's not a natural tree. It's a cross of two seeds. And it's the only tree that aspirin comes from.
Right. It does. Comes from the bark.
So I've looked into it and I've tried to make sense of it. And
I don't think that's it. It's an image for something that's energetic. We just haven't figured it out. I think it's because think of it. I just said boot, and you're like, why am I looking at a boot? And I remember it was your brother. I think he'd hurt his leg or something like that, and we thought it was maybe the touchy. But like, why would an alien race want to show you a boot unless they literally healed your brother and he had no longer had a boot? Unless it has to do with something like maybe a constellation, maybe.
Well, it was the shape of like a foot or a sneaker. Actually, I thought it was like a sneaker because I used to wear Converse All-Stars as a kid. So I looked at it as a sneaker. But you're right. It could have been the interest on my brother's club foot because he didn't have it anymore. He didn't need braces.
Or a star system.
That originally is what people are like, oh, it's probably like the Benny Barney Hill thing. They showed you a star pattern. I'm like, I don't know.
Maybe.
I didn't feel that. I just felt it was more personal.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like when I do charades, I always my first guess is wrong because I'm trying to think of something that's more relative in my life, and I always think like if I was an alien race and I was trying to draw something, like what would it be? There's like a symbolism to it. I think when like I've had images as a kid that I keep seeing all the time, and I realize they're not the actual thing. They're like a symbolism for something else. I discussed some of that in my film, but I'm thinking the willow tree is something else. It has to be. It's not the tree. It's symbolizing of something that you are supposed to know how it works.
Maybe it's symbolizing some form of conduit, between the energy field and him. The way the tree flows could be a conduit.
I also thought it might be a landmark of some kind. Like I was supposed to go there. It was very, very strong.
No, I think it's something, this conversation could keep going, everybody. I think I literally thought this when I interviewed you, and I still think this today. I think it's a metaphor for something of how something works.
I agree.
So I think it's like how you connect with them, like Tim said, but like if you really start to think of it that way, I think that's what they were trying to get it to. And then somehow your family is linked to whatever that is, how that functions, how that tree functions, how that looks.
I agree. It was too profound. And for me to have been 9 years old, still never lose sight of any of that or feel the same way when I walk by it or get there. Yeah, I'm with you. I wish I knew what it was.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe they'll figure it out this year.
Got to tell you, Melissa, what happened to me really changed my world paradigm. I mean, I was the witness of 6 objects with 12 other people, 7 adults, 5 children.
Wow.
And it was broad daylight, and there were 6 rectangular shaped items in the sky with living fire within them. And they stayed in military formation, evenly spaced, for about 25 minutes. And I'm telling you, when I saw that, I knew right away that they weren't ours. They weren't. There's no way. I don't know what they were. I don't know if they were ships. I don't know if they were beings. I don't know anything. But I know that my world changed. So that's why I became who I am today, UFO man. And it's also the reason why I'm researching to find out if other people have seen the same thing or something like it, or experienced the same kind of thing or the same kind of phenomena, because it was so soul shaking that it impacted me at the spiritual level. So I don't know what to say.
I mean, I feel that happens. There's not one person I think that doesn't have an experience that doesn't say the same thing. Like they're never the same afterwards. They've completely changed, and I think this is what people also experience in ancient times too, when they have connections with God or another dimension of being or experience. But Tim. Again, this is just you connecting with something that is part of you, which means you are much bigger than the being in this third dimensional reality.
Right.
And I think that the alien conversation, like I get some people still that are like, do you believe in aliens? I'm thinking like, okay, but I've been like in this field for how long? Like you're still asking me if I believe in aliens. I think that the alien conversation, again, is just so important to define humanity. It's just so important. And like, it doesn't matter if you don't believe in aliens or you don't believe in someone's story. The conversation is so important now that the government is publishing stuff in major newspapers. So it's not so taboo. So people can start talking about it.
Right.
I think we're past believe, don't you?
Without that, we can't grow as humanity, I think.
Yeah, we're past believe, don't you think?
I think so. I mean, it's like,
come on, really?
I think we're past disclosure. I think we're more into transparency now. If you're looking for transparency from your government, though, I don't think you're going to find it, except maybe in 10 to 20 years, because they're going to release it, like Tom said many times, by a drip, drip, drip method. I think a lot of people within Congress are so afraid of what they're seeing, and they don't know how to wrap their head around it, that they're not going to release it to the public in fear that something's going to happen.
Why would they be afraid? And why would they be afraid? If something's going to happen, it's going to happen whether we know about it or not. So
right, I understand that, but as the government is, they want to control the situation. So what I'm saying is they don't want to lose the control. It's a big part of it, I think.
Yeah, but disclosure is up to citizens. It's not up to the government.
Right. It's up to a grassroots
all changes.
movement.
I mean, I always say this when I get interviewed. Hollywood, Washington, any government across the world, it's all works like a marketing campaign. If you're not buying it, they're not selling it. So if you, as a society, want to believe in aliens, then aliens are real. If you want answers and they're real, and that's what will happen. But like that's how it works. There isn't someone on a podium that's going to tell you how reality works unless you're waiting for that. So as people in this space that are passionate about this work, and for people who are just wondering what it is, if you want it to happen, it will, because those people in power can't be selling you stuff you don't want to hear.
I do believe there are people in this space that are indeed waiting for a congressional answer, not an answer that they arrive at themselves. I arrived at it by chance myself. And I had seen a lot of things throughout my life, along with my family. And many have experienced several abduction events. Don't know. I've received marks. Just like Tom. Tom has scoop marks on his wrists. I've got marks on my chest that have stayed there for about 10, 12 years and it won't go away. I've had an implant behind my left ear. So there's a lot of things going on. What it is all about, who knows? Are they aliens? Who knows? I look at it this way. The connection that you're making between us and them is important, because I believe we are them. And there's a good possibility, and I've been speculating on this for quite some time, this is my theory, that we're not actually from here. Because we are, well, I am. I was incarnated on this earth. But what I'm going to say to you is, what I'm trying to say is we have webbing between our fingers. We burn in the sun. We're allergic to a lot of indigenous foods. We have a lot of allergies. Why? Why aren't we adapting to our own planet?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't want to get all woo-woo, but I think our souls are eternal. So if that's true, then we've lived many different lives in different dimensions.
I certainly hope so, because I'm not getting any younger. I get up, I'm like, oh my God, I can't get moving without a couple of coffees. And I'm like, Lord, man, I don't spring.
I feel the same way, Tom. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. Hey, before it gets too late, we do have a clip from your upcoming.
Yes, we have a clip from your
show
film.
that? You mind if we show?
Code 12.
I can show it. Yep.
Code 12.
All right, awesome.
Here, let's see here.
I like it.
This is a bit of a biography.
Cool though.
There's only one symbol that has haunted me since I was a child.
The frequency of the planet.
The Ark of the Covenant. It functions
Uh-oh.
as a
Uh-oh,
conduit between
hold on.
Puzzle together. They have laid out code.
Start over.
There's only one symbol that has haunted me since I was a child.
The frequency of the planet.
the
Uh-oh.
Ark of the Covenant.
Uh-oh.
I don't know why it's not playing.
Oh,
I'm
is it
using-
maybe because it's not downloaded?
Oh, I've got it on your page. Let's try
Oh,
one more time.
on my yeah. Can you take it from my Dropbox link?
Okay. Did you send it to my email?
No, let me do it right now. Sorry,
Okay.
everybody.
That's okay. We can just pull this one off.
That is my for some reason it's been doing that, even though we reloaded it. So I apologize to everybody.
No, it's
Hold on.
yeah, it's weird too because we played it before the show and it played just fine, didn't it, Tom? I can't hear you, Tom.
Yeah, we didn't volume up. We didn't have 3 live, feeds on it either. So it might be a buffer thing. That's all.
Right. It could.
Can
be
you just
that.
mute it and let it buffer and then play it after it buffers?
No, because it's not even playing in real time.
Oh, okay.
Because it's skipping to
On yours too?
okay. Hold
Okay.
on.
Like skipping to the next narrative.
Yeah.
I'm
Let's see
sorry,
here.
everybody.
Oh,
I'm glad the image I had was a willow tree and not like a pine tree. Right? 'Cause, can you imagine? I can't live
Okay,
in
so I
this
just sent it to your email.
okay, and I'm over there now. So let's see.
So we just while we're kind of hanging here, you had a lot of stuff going on in chat. Maybe we could take a question or two.
Sure.
Who's got a question for Melissa? I know. Oh, okay. Then.
I saw Jack Carey on there. Hi, Jack Carey.
Who's Jack? Would I know him? Is he like?
He's been on
Elder.
Gaia. He's been on Gaia a whole bunch. He's written a
Oh,
lot
okay.
of really good books. I think he's under there as intelligent paranormal or
Fantastic.
something.
Okay.
Okay, let's see if I can.
How'd you like working with Gaia? You put that whole thing together, didn't you? Weren't you one of the key founders of that?
Yeah, I mean, I was started out from when it turned over to a network. Yeah, it was an interesting experience. I think that it had a lot of really good intentions when it started out. That's probably all I can say.
Yeah, it kind of went in a different direction last couple, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I left a year and a half ago and I started my own company, and now I'm doing my own films and TV shows and stuff like that.
Yeah. And you got another one coming out after this one, right?
Yep, I have another one coming after this, and
Back.
then I have another one that I will be doing on the origin of belief with hopefully some big names. I can't say yet, but it should be pretty cool.
You just hold on, Tom. I'm just uploading something so where I can play it from there.
Okay.
Uh-oh. All right, does anybody have a question?
Okay, so you got people who see aberrations. Oh, geez. Okay, so you think when you see, or see activity or feel activity in your home, do you think that's related to extraterrestrials, or do you think that's something different? Do you think it's local, or do you think that's something that's from elsewhere?
That's a really good question. I mean, though, how do we define alien, right? So there's ghosts and there's entities and then there's aliens, right? Like, but they're not in our dimensions. So are they part of the idea of aliens in a way, right? That's something that's been floated around. I think that there is, I think that there's thought forms that people create on this planet and entities that feel completely different than an alien ET structure to me. And those things feel as if something is like choking you or on your on your, your
Pressure.
chest. Yeah, pressure. And I think that I don't even think that that's like something that's like coming from outer space. I think that's like honestly like what humans create in this planet with thought.
Do you remember how I worded that? I said it was like being wrapped in saran wrap. And
Yeah,
like,
awful. It's
yeah,
awful.
that's what it felt like. Then I felt
And
like
I'm always like, all right, who did this? Who thought of this? Yeah, that's a totally different feeling, I think, than dealing with something. I mean, that doesn't mean that an extraterrestrial presence can't be evil in its intent, but it definitely doesn't. I don't feels the same.
So do you think that extraterrestrial life is actually paranormal, or do you think it's more nuts and bolts and they just travel through what might be perceived as paranormal?
You mean in the same way that entities can travel interdimensionally? I think so.
Okay.
I
Because
mean,
to me, it's very nuts and bolts.
yeah.
But
I don't think, I mean, the idea of a craft is such a strange thing to think about. If you think if something can travel interdimensionally, why would they need a craft, right? So there's something physically that's coming here in some kind of interdimensional travel, and then things that can just float in between dimensions. Are
Right.
they both aliens? I mean, they could be. I mean, there's a lot of multidimensional talk these days in New Age communities and also in the alien community. And definitely from even a government perspective, okay, like that seems more plausible than even ships, is the idea of something traveling multidimensionally into our existence.
Like there's a
Even
lot
they talk to quantum physicists, they're like, okay, so aliens definitely could come here multidimensionally. Like that somehow makes more sense to them than the craft conversation, which is odd.
yeah, but they still need a place to put their feet up, right, and grab a sandwich. Maybe I don't know. I mean, it's maybe that's what it's kind of where they're housed, and they can all come together. They've got a, they can sit down somewhere. I used to think that the way the surroundings kind of got quiet and everything went dead silent and everything like that. I used to think that maybe that was, the wildlife and everything just kind of felt their presence too, which makes that
Mhm.
very real. And
Oh yeah, the Oz effect, when all of a sudden everything just dies. There's no wind, there's no noise.
and in the
That's
middle of a hurricane, it's just no wind, no breeze, no
crazy.
sounds, nothing. And then but that also in itself has a paranormal feel to it. How
I
can
have, I have
Why?
to apologize. I'm having technical difficulties uploading that video clip. So it's not coming up. It's coming up as a ping and not as a video. So even from my drive, it won't come off.
Well, do you think it's a bandwidth? Can you try it again? Can you just maybe let it buffer? Because it's
I can
actually
try
really cool.
again. Yeah. I
Please.
just got to bring it back up. Hold on.
So what I sent you won't work?
No, I don't know why. It's odd because it's worked before. It's just not working tonight.
It's the
Sorry.
Matrix.
It's the Matrix. Yes, very likely. You never know. Okay, code 12. Here we
Yeah,
go.
the trailer's kind of cool. I think everyone would like it. It's really.
Yeah, I wish it would play. Maybe it'll play if it's small.
Yeah, just
I don't know.
go for it. I mean, see what happens. Who knows when we'll have Melissa on again, right? So.
Right. And it's awesome having you on, Melissa. It really is.
Oh, it's awesome to be on. So thank you for having me.
I had to twist Tim's arm.
There's only one symbol that has haunted me since I was a child. A dream that has turned into an obsession. Something is trying to get us to put the puzzle together. They have laid out codes everywhere to understand it.
This goes back centuries. There may have been some type of relic or landmark left behind.
The Great Pyramid was a power generator. It was a device that would literally alter the frequency of the planet.
The Ark of the Covenant. It functioned as a conduit between Earth and the field.
The zodiac is actually a clock. And right now that clock is broken. We can't read it.
The machine we live in has its own built-in mechanism to take over. So if you don't take over, it will take over.
eternal or eternal life. That is connected to the base 12 source code. Why was it shifted over to base 10?
My goal is to uncover the lost technology, activate the hub, and reset the simulation to make it easier for the human expansion. Of course, if the simulation doesn't get in my way.
That's
Very,
awesome.
very cool.
It is, right? Yeah, it's intriguing, you know. A lot like
What
Melissa.
happened?
Yeah. So
Anyway,
anyway, at least it ran, right? So that's pretty cool.
And the Matrix
Yay!
gave us a
know.
gift. There we go.
See? Just can't give up, man. Just got to keep moving forward. See,
Yep.
in the chat, looks amazing. See, there you go. Right? When I first saw the teaser you sent it to me a while ago, I was like, man, this is freaking awesome. So
yeah, it was super fun. It was super fun to make. It's hard to
bet.
look at myself though. It was like, okay, cool. I did that. But I love I love motorcycles and like old cars, and I'm like, I want
you
to
have a bike? You have a bike now?
No, that's a Triumph though. I love those old.
I have a
cars.
Triumph.
Those are my favorite.
I have a black Triumph Speedmaster 865 in my garage that I bought brand new in like 2003, 2004, and it still has 4,000 miles on it, and it's still in my garage. It's got dub pipes on it. I got the shift kit on it from the I forgot what it was, the bigger one that had the, and yeah, I've got it's the bullet blinkers on it and everything. I put a lot of chrome, you know.
Sweet.
So I don't ride it much though, you know, back. You know what I mean? It's kind of and Tennessee you have to wear a helmet, so it takes all the fun out of it.
I think most states you have to wear a helmet now.
Yeah, kind of.
Snoopson says it's a Tomb Raider bike.
It is. It was so fun. It was so cool. Yeah, it was very cool.
I agree with Kim Jellin. It's a cool bike, but Indians are as well.
Oh, Indian bikes? Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
My brother actually designs new prototypes for Indian
Nice.
motorcycles.
That's cool.
Mhm. They had to race one up Pikes Peak actually, which is in Colorado. That's where they do most of their test runs for cars and motorcycles. And they did a gas and electric. And the electric beat out the gas, but it was so dangerous because you're making those turns and then you're losing elevation. And then you can't feel it, right? It's like racing a Prius. You can't feel when it shifts, right? So you're like, I hope I don't die off this cliff.
Yeah, they say a lot of accidents are happening with electric vehicles. So because people can't hear them, either inside or outside the car.
Right. I think it's more dangerous with a motorcycle, but yeah.
Yeah.
The cars, you think?
No, motorcycles.
No, the electric motorcycle, because you're really feeling out the vehicle to know when to shift and when to turn.
Right. Yeah.
You can't feel it. I mean,
the acceleration is pretty quick too. It doesn't have any.
Yeah.
It's there right away. You don't have to build up. Yeah. One thing that we'd like to highlight is that you're CEO of a film studio that you created, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Called Hathor Studios.
Mm-hmm.
Here's your logo. Come on. There
That's
it is.
it.
Very cool logo. Based on an Egyptian goddess, correct?
Right. So the original OG. So a lot of this symbol is used for Isis, which she has the same symbolism. She's mostly a priestess, but there's a pantheon of 8 gods that were the original gods of Egypt, and Hathor is one of them, and she represents the female energy of creation. And back then, ancient times, before Isis and Osiris, which then took over the narrative of ancient Egypt, that she was a pillar of Ra, right? So it was like Ra being the main god, and then Hathor. They weren't necessarily married, like in the story of Isis or Osiris. This is important because they represent 2 energies of the universe, right? Male and female, magnetic and electric. And I think that we get confused with male and female and goddesses and God. I didn't name this company after a goddess because I'm a woman. I named it because I wanted to create a film studio that brought a new perspective to the same story. And in this case, I'm bringing back that magnetic energy instead of the electric energy, which most film studios are run under. I'll put it that way instead of doing it male, female, god and goddess.
Yeah, a different type of energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to show some of the work that you've done.
Sure.
UFO Witness, Alien Endgame, and Alien Invasion.
Mm-hmm.
Unearthing Nazca.
Right. We found a alien mummy in Peru, which is pretty exciting.
Deep Space. And
Yep.
Ancient Aliens, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Rewired with Dr. Joe Dispenza. The Miracle Hunter and the Electric Universe. I've actually seen Electric Universe. That's a good show.
Yeah, that was hard to make. Tried to take all their information and make it into an understandable show. Really cool guys. I love them.
These three here, Ancient Civilizations, The Universe, and Alien Encounters Declassified. I don't think I ever saw that with that one there, Alien Encounters Declassified. I would like to see that. Now, I did watch most of Hangar 1.
Yep. I love that show. That was a lot of fun with all the reenactments.
Right. I was really into that one, yes. Escaping the Prophet on TLC or Chelsea Does on Netflix. Is that still on Netflix?
I think so. I mean, it was see, how many years ago did I produce that show? God, I don't know, 9 years ago, maybe. But that was not her talk show. That is a docu-series. I have some funny things to talk about there, but there was one episode we did about drugs. So she picked all these kind of hot button things that was happening in America. And one of them was an episode about drugs. And she wanted to do all the drugs, and then we were going to film her. Of course, it's not really legal. So she really wanted me to get an interview with the current drug czar at Washington.
Right.
And, all right, sure. That's my job. I get behind the walls and get the people that they want. So I got all the way to the current drug czar, and I can't remember his name, but it was under the Obama administration at the time. And I got all the way, like a million assistants. And he finally gets on the phone with me and he says, "You are persistent." I said, "Yes, sir, I am. It's my job." And he said, "Do you think it's good for your career for me to go on this show at Chelsea Handler?" And I said, "Absolutely not, sir." And he's like, "All right, then, there's my answer." I'm like, "Okay, thank you."
Okay, another thing that Melissa is known for is Cosmic Cantina. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, this is my podcast with my two co-hosts, Josh Golombeski and Matt O'Connor. We try to get 2 to 3 shows out every month, and we do everything paranormal. And so we talk about everything from Bigfoot to aliens to ghosts to entities, you name it, the Matrix, time travel. What's different about this podcast, I would say, is that we take all the stories very seriously, but we have a couple drinks and we kind of talk about things, and we present it in a way, I think, that is, yeah. I had a couple glasses of wine before this. We present it in a way that is a little bit more comical, not the stories, but the fact that, life is short, and sometimes all of this.
That's what we try to do here too, is just be ourselves, not try too hard to impress anybody. Where I'm just me, Tim's just Tim. It's like we're on a high top, a happy hour, and we're just talking amongst friends.
Right. We're having, and
that's
things
how
can
we
be,
do it.
things can be funny. Also, they're very bro-ish. So, I'm trying to be a hardcore journalist, and they're telling dick jokes, and I'm like, that's not. I gotta get back to the story.
I don't think Tim's told a dick joke. Have you, Tim? No. Thank God, right? Because that'd be like inappropriate.
I would prefer more of a professional touch, I guess. But I do have something I want to highlight. I found a comic book you wrote.
Oh, you dug that up. Yes, I did publish this. Yes, Sky Pilot. This is based on a two things. One, I had a vision about this. It was very strange. It came to me like on a bike ride. It was so weird. It was like the sun was just right. I had this whole download of these like beings that came during the Vietnam War and kind of disguised themselves into soldiers and stuff, and they inserted themselves in a time not only in Vietnam but in the world where they were creating a lot of chaos, so people could start to think for themselves. And I'm like, okay, this sounds like a really good idea. Later on, as I was prepping for Hangar 1, I had found a bunch of Vietnam stories where they had these we only featured one in Hangar 1, actually, one episode, but where these men would encounter, not like the Predator, like in the movie The Predator, where there was like, this thing trying to eat everybody, but like this thing that would land, like a crash, like a UFO crash, and the beings were kind of translucent, and then they would kind of mimic whatever the person looked like they would copy themselves as that person. They'll make them look human and speak English or speak whatever. And I thought, oh my God, this is just like this vision I had of this thing I wanted to write. And I thought maybe this really happened. And so my whole point of this comic was this happened at a time, because this is so funny, because this is way before I like started working at Gaia or anything like this. But the whole premise of the comic book is that the idea of this galactic federation or whatever is really trying, like, Earth is so behind, and it's causing all sorts of interference in frequency with all the dimensions, that the only way they can get Earth to grow up basically is to cause a bunch of chaos and to make people question their reality so they can start to be bigger than they are. So that's what the purpose of the comic book is. But it's these aliens landing during the Vietnam War.
Is it
And
still
disguising
in print?
themselves as soldiers.
Is it still in print?
Yeah, it's still in print. I wrote the first comic as the beginning of a graphic novel, so it kind of plays more like a trailer, or it feels like it when you're reading it.
Okay.
But then it just, it's so much money to make a comic. I'm like, well, if someone's not funding it, then I have to move on.
Where can people get a hold of it if they're interested in it?
They can order it on my site, and I can send them a copy.
Okay. You want to put your site link in the chat, feel free, or otherwise we'll do that and make it known in the description, and people can pick it up. One thing I want to point out is you're going to be featured at UFOXPO, and you're going to be featuring your film Code 12 exclusively there as a premiere, correct? It's the first premiere?
Yes, it'll be a premiere.
That's cool, and it will open your eyes, people. So you need to go to UFOXPO. So get your tickets and go see Melissa Tittl and Tom Reed and everybody who's going to be there. It's going to be exceptional. One thing I want to note is back in July at the UFO Festival, the 75th anniversary, Tom had a red and white Stratocaster played by Tyrone Vaughn, part of the Stevie Ray Vaughan family, signed by a bunch of ufologists and researchers. Cool. Yeah. And one of them was Melissa. Here's her picture signing it. And here is the guitar that is signed by everyone. And it will be raffled off at the convention. So if you buy a ticket, you'll be entered into the raffle. And you could own a guitar that is legendary in the sense that it was played by someone in the Fabulous Thunderbirds. And it was also, wasn't it also a practice guitar, Tom?
Yeah, it was donated or given to Jimmy Vaughn to play or use, or with the hope to get him to, I guess, sponsor it, if you will. And he passed it on to Tyrone. It was in the family for a while. So, I mean, if they had given me like a real Strat or something, a Fender Strat, it would have been worth a fortune. So they gave me this one, and I gave him some money to take his wife to lunch and whatever. I gave him $100 to go to dinner, and he gave me the guitar. So it was kind of cool. and Melissa signed it. Ben, Ben's great, and just a lot of Lou Elizondo, signed it, and Kathleen Martin, and everybody pretty much. It was kind of cool. It was kind of fun. I was running around, this guitar. You got to sign this, Barra and the rest of them. Caroline Corey.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you something before you depart. Would you say it's like in some degree like we're all like these little balls of light that just need to be recharged?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
And there's a field that you can do that. I mean, I don't want to sound all woo woo, there's this field that you can like recharge yourself, but in a way it's kind of true. I think that we have souls living in this body that are eternal. And there's just something that I think if we really understand how the universe works on a scientific scale and not just
you can tap into it.
Meditation gurus talking about it, I think that like we'll understand that like we can connect to that and be bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're more than the physical self.
We're more than the physical self. We just believe in it because we're in this reality and we have to deal with it. And everyone who's in it has to deal with it in some facet.
Right. I do have to play one thing here because I have to honor my sponsor. So here we go. I gotta get that. Here we go.
Sure. That's got like 70,000 views in like 3 weeks. It's crazy.
So cool. It's like the coolest UFO thing happening ever.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah, again, I've got the Galacticon. Remember Galacticon? You were there for the 75th. She's heading up the cosplay aspect of it, kind of do some competitions and things like that. And Barbara Gomez, who runs Main Street Roswell, she's heading up the revamping or bringing back the festival downtown. So it's going to be really kind of cool. It's a first time, and they asked me to do it, and I had the means to do it, so why not? But I still got to send you a video. You got to see this. But anyway, I'm looking forward to it. I got a bunch of really cool people coming. Melissa. It took me forever to get her to get a lot of red tape. It's unbelievable.
I'm glad she's going to be there.
She's like hating me today. I was like, oh my god, I was like, yeah, I know.
Well, I'm glad you're going to be there, Melissa, and perhaps I'll see you in 2024.
Because you're not going to be there. Oh,
right. But I'll have a table there. Tom will have some of my stuff there, and I'm going to be zooming in virtually, so I will be there, but I won't. So
yeah, it's going to be fun. Hey, Melissa, thanks for making time. I know you're busy. It was really nice to have you. I mean that sincerely. It was really good.
Yes. And feel free to come back on the channel anytime that you would like to do so.
Cool. Yeah, invite me anytime. I love talking about weird stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's the best. All right.
Yeah, we want to thank everybody who watched online and everybody who participated in the chat. And from all of us on the panel, thank you for watching and see you next week.